All right, so we'll call the meeting to order. This is the April 2, 2020 Beaufort County Board of Education agenda setting meeting. This is the first meeting that we're doing by remote video conferencing, so we're probably going to have some quirks and issues here to work out, as we already have getting started. So the agenda setting committee are the board officers, and they're all in attendance: Kathy Robine, William Smith, and myself. Then also for board members in attendance, we have Joanne Orishak, Tricia Fidrich, and Pearl Campbell. We have staff members Frank Rodriguez and our assistants Robin Cushingberry and Molly Mercado.
Tina, I think Rachel Wisniewski.
Oh, I'm sorry,
was
Rachel. I wonder why she's not in my list.
She's listed as Scarlett.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Scarlett.
Yeah.
Okay, I apologize. We have
And Wendy is here as well.
okay.
Sorry about that.
Okay, so we have Rachel Wisniewski, board member, also participating, and Wendy Cartledge, general counsel, participating. So we first need a motion to approve the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda.
I will second the agenda.
Okay. Any discussion?
And I'm not going to have you vote online. I'll just take, since it's just the three of you all.
Okay.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I did have a question. How is that we have that we have our past agenda on agenda? Is that what we're picking off? Is that correct?
It's in board docs, the draft agenda for April 7.
Okay, right. And this is the agenda of the old meeting that we never had, right? Correct.
Yes, with some added items and some deleted items.
Okay, so there were some added items and some deleted items.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. That's fine. Okay. Okay.
All right. So what I suggest for board members, well, first of all, it will be, the officers will be, I guess, speaking first, but if one of the other board members in attendance wants to speak on Zoom, under the participant list, and I gather it varies on people's screens based on the device you have, there's a place where you can click to raise your hand, and that would help me out. If I see your hand raised that way, I will call on you. It may not be in order, though, of when you raised your hand, because I do not have access to the order. So now we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag,
of the
United States of America, and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The media has been properly notified. We have the public also observing the meeting via Zoom, and this meeting will also be posted, and there's a link to the website on the posted agenda. Our next item is the approval of the March 9, 2020 committee meeting minutes.
I move we approve the March 9th committee meeting minutes.
We have a second, William?
Is William still on?
Yeah, I just got back on.
Oh, okay.
I went to go look at the agenda and I clicked off. It kicked me off.
So Kathy made a motion to approve the meeting minutes of March 9, 2020. Do you second it?
Yeah, I can second it. Yes, sure.
Okay. Do we have any discussion?
No.
No,
No?
it's fine.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. Our next business item is the April 7, 2020 board meeting minutes.
No, agenda.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Agenda. Sorry. Fixated on minutes. Thank you.
Oh.
So Molly, are you going to bring those up for us in your shared screen? That's D. Okay.
All right. Molly, can you close your chat? Do you see that?
Do you see my chat?
I can see from Christina to everyone.
Yeah. Oh, I don't see that. Okay.
It's right in the middle.
Okay, let me.
You know what, Robin? I think that's the way you're viewing it as opposed to on Molly's end, honestly.
Okay. You're right. You're right. You're right. It's on me. It's me.
Yep. Okay. All right. So this will also be a remote video conferencing meeting that will be live streamed by the county channel. So the first item is would be call to order at 6 p.m. and our usual things, approval of the agenda, pledge of allegiance, etc. So public comments. So William and Kathy, we have to decide how this would be best done by the public. I have an idea. I don't know if you guys have, if you have ideas too, and if one of you wants to go first, that's fine.
Okay, I have a suggestion. I watched the county council meeting and how they took public comments. And what worked most effectively for them was taking telephone calls where the person would call in and they would give their comments. Now, they had a little bit of difficulty because they tried to put the people on hold, and then when they went to listen, the people were gone. So what they ended up doing was asking the people to send their phone number in, and then they were called by their secretary or whoever has Robin's job for them. And when she got them on the phone, she'd say, "This is Beaufort County Council, you're on," and they then gave their comments. And that seemed to work the best.
William?
I'm open. You said you had an idea. I'm open to hear your idea.
Yeah, my idea also was to have it by telephone and have the members of the public, since it's being live streamed, when the meeting starts at 6 o'clock, they could submit an email. We could have the email address there to Robin with their contact information, and most importantly, of course, their name and their phone number. And then when we get to public comments, she could call them, each person one at a time. It will be more, time intensive than what we currently do when they're there in person. But that way they read their own comments. It would be it would be basically kind of like what we do already, but Robin would be the one to have to contact them, and that would avoid the problem that Kathy's already mentioned of, having a queue or whatever, how they line up if your phone system allows that process. This way, just Robin can call them, they have their 3 minutes, and then she goes on to the next call, and we all hear what each person has to say.
I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
Will we do public comments twice or once?
We can do them twice.
Can you scroll? Well, let me. I'm trying to get the, okay, I got the whole, my preference for this meeting would be to have it once. We're not sure how well it's going to work. We're allowing the public to comment, and public comments are not required by law. And if it's not going to work well, then we're going to go through it a second time round. I just think the first time, one session would be preferable. And that's my opinion. What's yours, Kathy?
Well, I'm looking at the agenda, and it may be that this agenda's pretty lengthy, and that it might be better to just have one at the beginning, because for us to call somebody back at the end of the meeting, I don't know that they'd even be with us any longer. I don't know.
No, that's a good.
That's my concern looking at it. I'm thinking that maybe depending on how well this goes or how well it doesn't go, we might want to consider having shorter agendas and maybe an additional meeting or something, unless we're really good at this virtual meeting format.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot slower, as we've kind of already noticed.
Well, I think that we probably will need an additional meeting. I will agree with Kathy on that. As well as I don't, if we miss them the first time, I don't have a problem with calling them back at towards the end of the meeting. I mean, or anyone who may want have wanted to have commenting at the beginning. I don't see a problem with calling them back and letting them comment. I mean, that's just me personally, but.
Well, I think we should be able to accommodate everyone at the beginning.
Mr. Kim, are you raising your hand? Okay, he said no, okay.
I'm checking. No one's raised their hand for me to see.
Okay.
Okay. All right, well, do you want to make a motion, Kathy?
I move that for this initial remote video conferencing meeting, that we limit public comments to one session, one 30-minute session at the beginning, and since we don't know if it's going to work well. So for the first, and I'm just saying this for the first meeting, that we just put it at the beginning while we figure out how we're going to do these meetings, how successful we are at running the remote meetings.
Okay, I'll second it. Any further discussion?
I will not be supporting this motion because of the fact that I think that I want people in the community to speak to us as much as possible, especially at a time that we're going through this, and I want to know their thoughts and their minds. So unfortunately, I will not support this motion.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries 2-1. All right, now we're on to the superintendent's report. And go ahead, Dr. Rodriguez.
Yes, so we have several items on the superintendent's report, and we have some guests that are going to be participating on this. So on the agenda, you can see that there's a segment of it split on the front end, and then a segment after we do some of the other sessions. So would you like me to just go through this initial part of other matters first?
Yeah, so we can just go in order of what before.
Perfect. So yes, we'll have the clock committee, citizen-led oversight committee that will provide the update. They were scheduled to provide at the last March meeting.
Excuse me.
That was canceled. So Mr. Barber, the chairman of that committee, will be available to provide that. efficiency study report to the board. We'll
Rodriguez?
take. Yes, sir.
I'm a little lost. Now I'm looking at the agenda. On the agenda, it says goals, the priority
No,
schools. So are we
up
not going
higher.
over that agenda?
Up higher on the agenda. Up higher. If we
Above
can,
that, William.
yeah. Do you see right there? It's split into two sections. So the other matters section is going to take place first, since we have guests that are going to be presenting.
Okay. Okay.
So
Okay, now I'm with you. Okay.
you see it? You got it?
Yeah. Now I see it. Yeah.
Perfect. So the citizen-led oversight committee, Chairman Barber from the committee will be online with us to present. Then the efficiency study, Ms. Barrett will from the firm that was doing the efficiency study, or that did the efficiency study, will be presenting to the board their findings. And then under other matters, I would provide a COVID-19 coronavirus update for the board in terms of what we've been doing and for the public, right? What we've been doing, where we are, anything we're hearing from the South Carolina Department of Education that may be relevant to this.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Kathy or William, do you want to have anything comment there, or you're good with all that?
Is in the past, well, that's fine.
Okay. Then after that, we'll have the approval of the meeting minutes. And then we'll go.
Well, let me ask you, why do we have the superintendent's report broken down into two different columns on this right here?
Because these people are participating remotely, and we thought that it would make it easy. Well, back March 17th when we were going to meet, we thought it would make it easier for them if they were towards the beginning of the meeting, as opposed to if they're a lot later in the meeting, they really don't know what time they're going to come on. It's more variable.
Well, let me ask you this: what time are we going to have this meeting?
It's 6 o'clock is posted on this agenda.
Okay. And the reason I was asking that is I was wondering where we're going to move, or we were possibly going to have meetings a little earlier. But that's fine. That's fine. But okay, that's fine. All right. Go ahead. You can go ahead, Dr. Rodriguez.
That completes the first section there under other matters for the superintendent's report. I think the next section on the agenda, Dr. Gwatch, you were moving forward with approval of minutes, I think.
Minutes, yep.
Yep.
I don't think there's much there to discuss. Then we're on to the committee reports. And we have three committees reporting out at this meeting. And then we're back to the rest of your superintendent's report.
Okay, so there's the under student achievement, the priority schools update, the TSI schools update. We'll have a segment on fiscal responsibility, on the monthly transparency report. These are items that were on the prior agenda that we want to make sure we bring forward to the board.
Dr. Rodriguez and Tina, Jim sent a thing out saying he had spoken with Molly, got the information that right now
I can't hear you very well.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Oh,
Okay.
much better.
Okay. On the priority schools, Jim
Yes.
sent out some information saying that he checked with, based off of Dr. Rodriguez's direction. We do have to do the priorities, but we don't have to do it right now. So if you want to move it maybe to May, we can remove the priority and the TSIs to a May meeting. If that's something you want to look at because of the length of the agenda.
Yeah, no question. The agenda is super lengthy. This was the actual the first quarter report from
Third quarter.
Third.
Yes, sorry, third quarter.
Yeah.
Yes, third quarter of the school year. So I think that's probably a good idea. I mean, if looking at the agenda, it is huge.
Well, like Kathy said, I was looking forward to going to possibly having 2 meetings. I do not want to keep pushing things back because the more things will occur, and if we keep pushing them back, then we will start getting kind of overpopulated with things. So I think that we should possibly split this up into 2 meetings, and maybe unfortunately add a meeting. But I don't want to put this off until next month. What we can take care of today, why put off tomorrow? I think if we can add another meeting and have it done at that meeting, I think that would be more appropriate than just keep throwing them off into other meetings, because as time progresses, I know that we will be getting into the finances and other matters, and so other things will be coming up, and so I don't want us to keep throwing things off, things that we can handle today to off tomorrow. So I mean, that's my thoughts moving forward. I think we should start handling things, and if we have to add another meeting, then and we do it. Being that this is going to possibly going to be a slower process, if we would have to do more meetings, then I'm open to that.
Dr. Rodriguez or Kathy, do you have any?
Well,
comment?
can we make that decision at the conclusion of this?
Sure.
Based on what time? I do think that these priority school updates and the TSI updates, I think that information there, unless it's just, you know, I know we've got the written information already, so we've read it, and the principals were going to present it, but now that they're not, and Dr. Stratos, you know, it may not be as lengthy of a presentation. But I guess I'm kind of feeling like, let's look and see kind of if we can eyeball this and see how much time we think this is going to take, the whole agenda we have in front of us, and then make that decision. I mean, how long do you think this is going to take, the presentations of the priority school update and the TSI? I know we've already received their PowerPoints and have read them.
Yeah. I mean, I think ultimately it depends on how many questions we're going to get around it. You know, I mean, I think that's what it'll come down to. You know, I think your suggestion is a good one. You know, if we move through the agenda here and come back to it at the end and determine whether you want to keep it on there now, or you want to, you know, want to move it back to another meeting, that's fine.
So we have 2 board members that would like to speak. Tricia, then Joanne.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead, Tricia.
Frank, back to the efficiency study. When the person, and I can't see up on the agenda right now, that the person gives the report on the efficiency study, Ms. Barrett, Corinda Barrett. Are you also planning to give some kind of report as to your thoughts on how you might have some action surrounding that study?
Honestly, not at this time. I want to really digest the study myself and then come forward with something. But, you know, one of the things that we're going to be living through here is that this budget process is going to come into play. It's going to be a factor, and I don't know what the state of South Carolina is going to do yet either, right? They're trying to determine whether they're going to essentially roll over the budget from last year and keep moving forward, whether they're going to come back and have a session to make some determinations about things. So there's a lot of unknowns now around that that we're really waiting. So I'm not sure that really I'm ready to do that until I have a better picture, understand what the state's going to do.
Okay, I understand. I was thinking about that in 2 contexts. One, just when we were looking at the length of this meeting, whether or not you were going to, have any additional information as a result of that study, and just to whether or not you'd had a chance to read it and make some. But that makes total sense.
Yep.
Ms. Orshak? So Tricia, can you put your hand down and,
Yes.
yes, thank you. Ms. Orshak?
She's muted. Somebody has to unmute her.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. No, I just wanted to add that historically, the reports on our schools have been lengthy ones and will likely be so again. And I can see looking later on in the agenda that we have very significant items under board business, and I'll wait for my comments on that when we get to that spot on the agenda. But I would think if we can wait till May for the school reports, that would be optimal given the size and some of the other more pressing items on this agenda. That's just my input.
So Joanne, can you now take your hand down for me?
I will.
Thank you.
I'm learning.
You're ready. Great. All right. So, let's see. So what's the will of the committee right now?
Well, I think, we know that this is an area that doesn't have to be reported right now.
Yes.
And we have the permission from the state to view it at a later time. So that it's just on the table that we could move this to a different meeting at this point.
So you want to just make that decision at the end?
That's what I'm thinking.
Are you okay with that, Will?
Well, my thing is, once again, and I will reiterate this, that I understand I understand your point with the state that said, what I don't want us to have a huge backlog. The backlog is my point. And if we can, like I said, we can add a meeting, because we're at a time right now where we probably will need to have more meetings, where we will be needing to communicate more. Even if we had a meeting on a Wednesday or something, and we give them an hour to get it done, and then at least we're getting it done and we're not having on a backlog. I think that is coming in critical times. We don't know whether we're going to be tasked with having to deal with a budget and all that right now. We don't know the answer to that. So I think we should be in preparation, just in case. We should be preparing ourselves. And I think that getting it done is better than just putting it off and saying that we don't have to, just because the state says that we don't have to do it. I understand that's what the state say, but I think is when the state brings it and say, okay, well, this is what needs to be done now. If we already have those things done, then I think we will be in a better position versus having everything on a backlog or saying, well, they said we didn't have to do it, we didn't do it. I mean, that's just my preference. That's just my opinion.
Well, we're definitely going to do it. It's just a matter of fitting it in. So
Which meeting?
And I'm not saying that it has to get in this agenda right here, Kathy. I'm saying that let's commit and say that, okay, and what don't get in this meeting and this on this agenda, then we have another meeting and we will deal with those issues. My thing is, I don't want to start throwing things on the back burner, and just because the state tells us that we don't have to do it and backlogging it. I want to deal with every issue, because every issue does matter. If we put it on the agenda, apparently it has merit to it. That's my
yeah, I think we're all in agreement with that it needs to be, everything that's on this agenda are items that we need to deal with. We're just trying to prioritize when we deal with them. So
All right, we'll come back to that. All right, the next thing is, so we're still with you, Dr. Rodriguez.
Yep, so we have under, are you talking about fiscal responsibility?
Yep.
yes.
Yeah, so those are the items that we were going to be presenting on at the last board meeting and sharing with the board. So we just kept them on here. because those are items we report out regularly on. I think Mr. Campbell is trying to, are you trying to chime
yeah,
in?
he's got his hand up that way. Okay.
My question is
Go ahead, Earl.
my question is the budget. How you said the state has the problem with the budget. How would that affect the county? How we're dealing with the county?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
How you said the state have some problem with their budget right now, right?
The state has some issues, not issues. I mean, they're just trying to figure out what they're going to do because that can impact any state dollars that we would be getting, right? They're putting some things into the budget like they normally do that would impact local school districts. We don't know what that's going to look like yet because we don't know what impact any of this is going to have on any of this COVID-19 thing's going to have on their decision making.
Okay, so have we been talking to the county about our
Yes,
budget?
point of order. I think we're delving into the topic that we will probably discuss at our April 7th meeting. Is that correct, Dr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Okay, we
we'll discuss.
probably should steer clear of any of those conversations at this time and stick to just setting our agenda items. Because that topic is not for discussion today. We're just setting agenda items. That's all I'm saying. This is a critical topic that needs to be discussed
I'll wait
with the
until
full
the 7th.
board.
No problem. I'll wait until the 7th.
So those are the fiscal responsibility items: the transparency report, the 100K report, and the monthly board budget report, and then an update on the 2021 budget.
Can you scroll down, Molly? Okay. Now we're to the board business action. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 items. And I don't see the one that I submitted today too, about that emergency resolution.
I'll put it on there.
Okay.
I'll put it on there.
All right. And in that email, there's the actual wording of
Okay.
of how you should add it. So,
There's also, I'm sorry.
well, I was gonna, so first is, I guess let's just go through these one by one. So the first 3, 4 things are 5, 6. Okay, the first, that whole top, that whole box with the 6 bullets, the first 6. Those
Yes.
are like all things in your regard, Dr. Rodriguez. So I don't know if is that the order you want? Do you have any comments about them?
Yes. Do you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Do you see the 5th bullet down on the approval of proposed memorandum of agreement between Beaufort County School District and the Beaufort County Sheriff? Either above or below that, we should have one that says approval of radios and radio equipment.
Okay, I'll put it back. I'll put it back on there.
But it shouldn't read the way it read. It should read approval of radios and radio equipment is what we're looking for.
Wendy just gave me, it says, use these words, Wendy, approval of radios and radio equipment.
Correct.
She says it should just say approval of radios and radio equipment.
Correct.
So that's what I'll put on there.
And
Okay.
you want that above the
Either above or below.
the
That's
5th
fine.
bullet. Correct?
1, 2. Let me count here.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, the 5th one is fine.
Okay.
Okay.
So the adult ed homeschool report, the personnel ratification report. Those are usually things that we see in executive session and then come out and vote on them. So how will we proceed with that? I
Well,
guess,
there's a couple here, right? One is the approval of the HERE management staffing one, right? That typically is one we would see in executive sessions. One way would be to have it available for the board to review either Friday or Monday, or Friday and Monday. That's a possibility that they could review at the district office, so they would have the context of it.
Along with the employment recommendations.
Correct.
It was suggested that I do an executive session folder and have those items that you all that you would need to review, like the contract, the personnel ratification, the employment recommendation, have that in a folder and the schedule times for board members who want to come and review it, and have it here so that they could see the details here, and we would set up appointment times and I make it available to board members.
That sounds good to me. I mean, you just have to be careful that, you know, that the governor has issued an order that, you know, we're not supposed to have groups of 3 or more.
Right. So I would schedule three or less, or 2 or less, and then then I would make a folder for each person who decided to come so that they can review. So you're not reviewing touching everybody's stuff.
Well, my problem with that is that, once again, we are board members, and nothing that we really review totally is totally just for pretty much for it's so private that board members can't have it. I think this is the time that we come and understand that we're all board members, and that this is a lot of this information is also public information.
No, it's not.
So when it comes down to getting this information, I don't see why it can't be emailed to us. But when it comes down to having to see it and take it back as though we're children, I think that I have a problem. I have an issue with that.
So, William, it's not public information. Some of it, you know, like normally we review these folders. Let's say the personnel ratification report is a good example. And normally that's reviewed by the board in executive session, and then we come out and just take a vote. So no, the public does not see the full document. So they can't all be emailed and displayed for the public. And I think Joanne wants to speak.
Well, the only thing that's missing is the opportunity for Q&A, which is probably the most beneficial aspect of reviewing these in executive session, is that we have the opportunity to ask Dr. Rodriguez or to ask Ms. Walton, you know, questions regarding the ratification report. The sensitivity of the CBRE HERE piece is another factor where I'm not certain how we would have Q&A as a board prior to taking a vote. Certainly the opportunity to review that was proposed was certainly appropriate, but beyond that, we're missing a critical component here, and I'm not certain how we're going to tackle that.
Perhaps, you know, if I had a couple thoughts about that. Okay, so if we all came in individually and read it, and then we had an executive session online where we could have the Q&A, Joanne, right, after we've seen it. You know, that gives us a time in advance to look at it and formulate any questions we might have, and then we can ask the questions in a forum like this with executive session. Another option would be to schedule an executive session and have the documents just shared with us while we're on. Not emailed to us, but put up on the screen, and we read them while we're online, and then ask questions, like similar to what we would be doing if we were sitting in a conference room. And because that might take more time, perhaps not doing it on the same day as the board meeting, doing it on a different day and then bringing it to a vote. Those are just my random thoughts that are popping into my mind. But I do think, you know, being able to ask questions and have that is an important part of the executive session. I agree with you, Joanne.
Tricia.
Yeah, I was just going to put my hand down because Kathy, that's exactly what I was thinking, was actually having an executive session, just, you know, through Zoom, but just with the board members, you know, as if we were in executive session.
And just have the documents on the screen like Molly's doing now.
Yeah, that's what I was,
Yeah.
that was just one thought that came to mind, right?
So,
Well,
go ahead, William.
once again, even if we did go in and pick up this information and take them, my point is this: we're board members. We're not kids. We're not. You know, I think that if a board member wants to pick up some information and bring it and look through it and digest it, because me personally, I'm tired of getting information and going and looking over it and making a decision in 5 minutes. That's not, to me, that's not conducive. Because the same right that everyone have to take this information and look over it and digest it, it should be the same right that we should have looking over this information and digesting it. I don't feel that we have enough time when we're giving something and told in the next 30 or 40 minutes later to take a vote on it. I have not had time to digest this information and to check this information out for myself. So therefore, I am not comfortable with continuously getting this information and voting off of it in 30 minutes. We're making $1 million decisions in 30 minutes, and that's something I think that needs to stop. So I think that as board members, we should get the information, or we can go by, pick up the folders and look at them and go over them in a private executive session Zoom. But as in to just put it up there and ask me to make a decision 20, 30 minutes later, I'm not comfortable with that. And this is something that it's been bothering me.
Dr. Rodriguez, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I think, you know, we can provide the folder, and anybody who wants to come to the school board, to school district office and schedule a time with Robin and review the items in there can do that. And we can still do what was suggested if you're having a separate Zoom meeting for executive session to scroll the document through at that time. But I think we can provide it at the district office, and any board member interested can come and look at it and review it there.
And that may be true, but once again, actually, when it comes to getting the documents, I think that's a board decision, not the senior staff decision. Dr. Rodriguez, no offense.
No offense taken. I wasn't making the decision. All I was asked to respond to that, and so I'm just providing an option. It's definitely, you know.
Okay. Okay.
So Wendy's, does she have a comment? But I don't think she's with us anymore, is she?
Wendy's here.
Oh, hey, Wendy.
I think the idea of having, can you all hear me?
Yes.
The idea of having the documents at the district office where board members can make appointments to come in and then take as much time as they need to review them ahead of time so that they don't feel rushed. I think that's a good idea. I do.
And then
to
the
have
second
time.
part, did you hear the second part?
Which was about having, you all would have a meeting via Zoom, and then the documents would be on the screen, and then you would be discussing them.
Correct.
So, unfortunately, you all cannot come together with these orders by the governor to meet. So you have to think of something. And we can't, we have to keep confidentiality, maintain confidentiality of documents.
So, Dr. Rodriguez, how many of these would fall in that category? All of those, right?
I mean, generally, the first one, the second one, the third one, Wendy, is that memorandum of agreement with the school district and the sheriff's office one that would?
You'd look at it in executive session.
Shouldn't be.
After the board, if you all approve that, then after it's approved, it would become a public document. But there may be items in that agreement that the board, I don't know, the board might want some revisions made. We don't know that until you all have an opportunity to review it. I mean, hopefully the board would approve it, but you have to discuss those things. Let me get the statute. Hold on a second. It's right here. I got it right here.
It seems like everything in that first box and the radios and radio equipment would be that we added would be items that would fall in that category.
Mm-hmm. That's right, because under section 30-40-70 A1 and 2, discussion of employment matters will be in a closed session, maybe in a closed session, as well as negotiations regarding proposed contractual agreements. So you all need to, and also discussion regarding security devices. Those would normally be done in an executive session.
Is Rachel still with us?
And something that I do want to point out while we're all together, because this is important. Under the Freedom of Information Act, under section 30-40-20C, information relating to security plans and devices proposed, adopted, installed, or utilized, other than amounts expended for adoption, implementation, or installation of the plans and devices, is required to be closed to the public and is not considered to be made open to the public under the provisions of this act.
So could you break that down and say what your reason is?
Yeah, so William, one of the things that we need to do to protect the district is that we do not ever want our weaknesses in security to be exposed to the public, or it would give somebody an opportunity to cause harm.
Right.
We've got to be really careful, William. We've got to be really careful. But wherever there's a deficiency or weakness, we have always got to tell you that in executive session. And that is not to ever be made public under any circumstances, because it could cause grave harm. We cannot let that happen.
Ms. Orshak?
So just a reminder that when we do go into executive session, we have to first start in open session with a public feed, and then to vote to go into executive session. So that process will still need to be followed.
Yes, you're right, Joanna. We have to state the specific purpose and what we're discussing. That's right.
Correct. So we have to be certain we iron out the mechanics of this technology and our ability to do that. Otherwise, we might get caught in a situation where we're inadvertently publicly broadcasting matters that are protected under the FOIA.
Yes, so and I will tell you all this, that with respect to other in-house attorneys like me, but we talk about these things, and really the general concession is it's not a good idea to do executive session, via electronics. It's better to be in person, but we can't do that right now.
Right. We're under a directive by the governor that we.
Yeah, we can't.
We can't.
No.
So do you think it might make more sense then if we're going to do an executive session? I understand, we have to do it, go into it public, Then we exit out, close the Zoom down, come back in to Zoom, have our executive session, close that one down, come back in, and then take our votes, and then not go into public session again, just to prevent something like that from happening. So it would have to be like on 2 different days, you know what I'm saying? Because I do see the potential there, like Joanne alluded that, you know, we do have to be careful.
We have to be really careful. No,
that
you're
we
right,
don't-
Joanne.
That we don't inadvertently segue. And it
That's
seems
right.
if we did it on 2 different days where we actually close down Zoom, when we go into executive session, then restart it and the public's not allowed to get in.
That's right.
So,
Have a
yeah, Robin.
suggestion?
Yeah,
Can
I was
you-
gonna ask you a question, but you go ahead.
Can you do it where you would do how we have executive session early? So say we do an executive session on Tuesday, say we do that like at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock. And then get out of that and then go back and have our published meeting at 6 o'clock or some kind of break in time frame if it's a 3-hour difference or 4-hour difference.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, that would
so we
work.
also need, so is the county council, excuse me, the county channel, they would be live streaming us at 3 o'clock as we made the motion to go into executive session? Is that possible or?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, or we can, another option I was thinking is we could have it like a work session and do the public business part of this meeting on Tuesday night, starting at 6, and then like Wednesday, we could reconvene or not, excuse me, never adjourn on Tuesday night and do the executive session. In other words, at the end on a different night. I think that's what I would favor, only because I think it's going to be terribly long, both of these. And I think that's a lot to ask of people, and especially the board members who have to be engaged for the entire program. Any comments, Kathy or Will?
Yeah, Earl's raising his hand.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Earl, go ahead.
Yeah, my question is, have we looked at anybody else that have done this and see how they handle executive session? Because this is our first time.
Exactly. And I think that's the same with most people. And so, you know, that it's all new. It's unprecedented.
Wendy says she doesn't know of anyone doing executive sessions right now.
Right. Okay.
Oh, if we, you know, we have major decisions in front of us, though. I don't know that we cannot have executive session.
Well, maybe the first meeting we need to have it without executive session. Maybe the second meeting we can have the executive session after we've done some research. If we need to, we can always call an emergency meeting. That's an option. I mean, that's the fact. That's the fact.
I'll ask Dr. Rodriguez. Some of these, obviously, what's the timeline for decision-making on, especially like the hearing or the auditing, et cetera?
And the contracts.
Is he there? Oh, he's muted. Dr. Rodriguez,
Okay.
can you unmute? Yes. Yeah,
Yep.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay. So, yeah, there are a couple of these that we were trying to bring, bring forward in March. So some of these we'd really like to move through to get the board's vote on it. So
And I do
go ahead.
I mean, and I do understand that, but I mean, through what we're facing right now, like I said, I think that we might need to do possibly some more research on executive session prior to us making a decision. And I think that possibly having it done at the next board meeting could probably might even be a better venue, or even having an emergency board meeting to get some of those things done. But Mr. Campbell did make a good point when he said that have we watched, and maybe even today we can research and see how some people, but I've even seen where some people have had their board meetings and they just have have had people well, yeah, but yeah, I get what you're saying. That's my
what do you think, Kathy?
Well, I think we need to move on some of these items. We certainly want to get an auditor engaged and that type of thing. So perhaps, what you suggested, Tina, was like taking a recess and doing the executive session the next day, if I understood you correctly.
Yes, that was correct.
As long as that works, what are the legal ramifications of that in terms of, do we say publicly before we go into recess what we're going to talk about in executive session when we come back? Or, I guess
we could I think we could take, if we had it all as one meeting, like we do with the work session, we could even take the vote at the end of the public meeting on Tuesday to go into executive session on Wednesday at 6 p.m. And that way we've eliminated the need for the county channel to be there until we come out of executive session on Wednesday night and take the votes. What do you think of that?
Can I make a suggestion too?
Yes, Rachel.
Sorry, I was just going to make a suggestion too, that maybe we and or Frank take a look at those items that are emergent, going to have some type of emergency or immediate impact financially or to our budget discussions and or to anything that has to do with academic calendar or things like that. I think that there's some prioritization that Frank would likely be able to do with regard to things that are immediately needed to be discussed in executive session, and some of the other things could probably be pushed a little bit further. So maybe we can whittle it down a little bit and put some prioritization on them.
Ms. Orshak?
Well, just a reminder, when we do make the motion to go into executive session, there's also discussion that goes with that. Any questions about the agenda items for executive session, so on and so forth. So with the proposal that you just put forth, where we would have the board meeting one day and then the following day have the executive session, would that discussion, any questions about the executive session happen the night prior on the motion?
I guess it would have to, and then that brings in another, exactly. So,
well, my thing is, why can't we start executive session earlier in the day where we can get that done? And I think we can have it all in one day, to be honest with you. I think it's a bit much to be doing 2 or 3 days. I think if we started at 3 o'clock or so, whatever, and get through what we can get to executive session, whatever needs to be done, make it 2 or 3 or 4 things, and that's all we're going to discuss in that executive session, that time frame, so that we can get this done. Being that this is our first test run, have four of the agendas that major need to be dealt with. Deal with those 4 different things. And start at 3 o'clock or whenever, and get those done, and then get prepared for the regular agenda setting meeting. I think if we start early in the day, I think that we can get all this done in one day versus stretching out 2 and 3 days.
Agreed.
Rachel, you still have your hand up again, or?
Can I ask Rachel a question?
She's got her mic muted.
Yeah, so I don't know if she can hear.
I can hear. I had to get
Rachel,
permission.
you
to unmute.
probably have the most experience of any of us with long meetings on Zoom. I'm speaking from just some from some experience that I haven't personally had, but my family members have. And they say that after 3 hours on Zoom, that it's really difficult to keep engaged and to keep going with the meeting. So I'm wondering, from your personal experience, is a long day something you would recommend, or breaking it up a bit?
I definitely would recommend breaking it up. I think it is difficult to keep people engaged. I mean, I'm trying to do it with children right now, so try that one too. So it is difficult to keep people engaged, and then you've got a lot of moving parts too if you've got documents and things like that, and so it gets longer when you've got board docs open and votes being taken and things like that. It stretches it out a little bit. So I would recommend trying to condense it as much as possible and prioritize, but I know that there is a lot of business that needs attention, so that's going to be difficult to do.
I think that we're doing a lot of problem solving right now than actually facing the work that we have to do. And actually, I have been on a Zoom conference for several hours. In fact, I've been on a Zoom conference for at least 6 hours at one time. So I mean, unfortunately, we are here to be. We are elected to get this work done. And I mean, and I'm sure that some of us may not want to be on here for several hours, and this is unfortunate that we're caught up in this crisis. But I think that we are doing a lot of what ifs. I think we should go along with it, and if we see problems as they occur, then we take care of them, or that's when we make the necessary adjustments. But to saying about it's going to be a long time, and I understand that we have families, but at the end of the day, that we're here to get the people's work done. That is one of our main jobs and main objectives and goals here as school board members.
So my comments would be to have them 2 separate days. I just think it's too much, as others have pointed out, in terms of concentration. We're new at this. It's already, here we've been at it well over or maybe about an hour by the time we got started. Whereas normally this type of meeting agenda maybe is an hour or less. So that would be my preference, is to split it into 2 days and not try to do it all in one. This looks, there's so many items. Either you, Kathy or William, do you want to make a motion?
Can we identify the items that our priority right now? Let's do that first. Dr. Rodriguez, what things do we have that really have to be done?
We went through the items that we were gonna bring forward, and to be honest, we pulled out items that we didn't necessarily need to bring at this time. So okay. I think we have permission on the back in the superintendent's report section to remove the ATSI and the TSI schools. So that's something we could do and move that to a later date. But the items that are under board business action are items that we had already gone through. The only one that's under board business action that we didn't bring forward was the last item there, which is the discussion of high school graduation ceremonies. I think that's Mr. Smith's, not
right.
The school
so
district.
The things in the bottom box are things that do not have to be done. Those aren't executive session items.
The bottom box, that's correct.
Yes, that's correct. So so I'm only concerned about executive session.
Oh,
items.
then I would say it's the top box, with the exception, well, with the top box, and then remember, there's the addition of approval of radios and radio equipment.
Right, okay.
That would need to go in that top
Right.
box.
So I, at this point then, would like to make a motion that we separate and that we do our executive session items on a different day than we have our general items. I mean, the following day, if we take a recess, whichever format seems to work the best. And I think probably agreeing to go into executive session, so we have that discussion, and then recessing and going into executive session the next day probably makes the most sense. So that's what I propose. I move that we go into executive session at the end of the first day of our meeting, and after taking a recess, and then return with executive session. Is that understandable? I mean, do you know what I'm trying to say?
No, I don't.
Okay. So I'm saying we have our board meeting, and at the end of the board meeting, we make a motion to go into executive session for the reasons that we, you know, how we always say how we're going to go into executive session. Then we have let people discuss that. Like, we have a discussion about why we're going into executive session. We vote on whether we're going to go into executive session. We take that vote, then we recess that meeting, and we start the meeting the next day in executive session.
That would work.
Yeah.
So then we really don't, then it's not as troublesome, I don't think, with the setting up the Zoom, so letting people into Zoom. Because remember, when we're in Zoom in the regular session, we've got the public that's invited to watch us. So when we go into executive session, they can't be watching us. They can't be included in our Zoom.
But then they have to be able to see us when we come out.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the technological solution to it is when you come out of a executive session, right? So initially you would get like 2 Zoom invitations, right? You get a Zoom invitation for the regular session, okay? And then you get a Zoom invitation for executive session, okay? Then when you come out of executive session, you close out of that Zoom, right? And you open back into the other Zoom. So if we follow the format that Kathy has suggested, right? We would start day 2 in executive session, right? Then we close out of that when we're finished, okay? And you have that second invitation to go back into public session on a separate Zoom. So everybody would close out and then log back into the public Zoom. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. So can we ask Wendy, does she see any issue with this?
I see Joanne has a question too as well. Joanne has her hand raised.
Yes, I saw, but I'm asking Wendy, and then we'll get to Joanne, and Rachel has her hand raised too.
Well, yeah, what we need to do is, if these items are going to be in executive session, then we need to go back and redo the agenda and state which statute it applies to for each one of those items. And the thing that I want to make sure of for you all is, as Mr. Smith was saying, I think it's a really good idea for Robin to make appointments available for you all, able to come in and review things ahead of time so you have enough time, because there are a lot of documents here, and I think it's too hard for you all to just be in an executive session and have to go through all that when you don't have enough time to digest it all.
All right, so I'll second your motion, Kathy.
Okay.
And so I'll ask
Yeah, Joanne and
Yep,
Rachel.
Joanne, and then I think Rachel had her hand up. No, Rachel took hers down. Joanne?
So the only potential danger that I can see is that you're guaranteed the quorum at your board meeting because obviously you're meeting, you have a quorum. But what would happen if you didn't have a quorum the following day because, you know, board members A, B, C, D, and E are unable to tune in at the time or may have technical difficulties or what have you. So you'd have to make certain that you have that quorum the second day. You're guaranteed the quorum the night of the board meeting. Yes, it's a lengthy board meeting. I agree with that, but so are many of our in-person board meetings have been, you know, 3, 4, sometimes 5 hours long, tacking on executive session to the open session. So I'm still leaning toward William's suggestion the day of. But whatever the officers decide, that's your decision. This is your decision here, so.
You know, okay. Does anybody else have anything to say?
Yes. I do have a concern with us doing the executive session second. I mean, I think we should do the executive session the first day, perhaps, and do the meeting the second day. I think the executive session obviously is executive session. Those are the important matters. Those should be done the first day. That's just my perspective. I think executive session, if y'all want to break them down the days, I think executive session should be done the first day, and then the second day we have the regular meeting.
I'll respond to that. So the regular meeting per our board policy is, you know, the first and third Tuesday of the month. So that would mean then that we'd have to have this executive session on Monday night. And here we are Thursday. That would not allow a lot of time for the board members to have appointments and come view the documents. Whereas if we had it the day after, i.e., let's say Wednesday night, it would allow more time for appointments to come see the documents.
So I'm rethinking my motion. And you know what? At this point, I think it would be easier for the public if we just had it on one day. And I think I'm going to withdraw my motion and say that I think we should just try it all on one day. And if it doesn't work, then we have the other plan to go to. We're just going to have to be really careful that we exit out of executive session. And with Dr. Rodriguez saying that we have 2 invites, that makes me feel better. You know, we have an invite. That's what you said, right, Dr. Rodriguez? He's muted.
Okay. We have two invites, the chairman from the clock committee and Ms. Barrett from the efficiency study.
Okay. No, so
not that.
That's not what I meant. We would have two different Zoom invites.
Oh.
So one,
yes.
Which would prevent that issue of error, you know, and so if we started the first meeting, the executive session early, like 4 o'clock, and then we started our regular meeting at 6, and perhaps we would have, you know, a little bit of downtime in between. That would be ideal. I'm just thinking maybe we should try it this way first, because it would be probably a bit easier for the public. And then if it doesn't work, or if we find that we did have fatigue or it was hard to get it done, then we know we can try 2 days. That's all. I'm kind of rethinking my idea.
Okay, Earl has his hand up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm you know, if we have executive session and then the regular board meeting, plus the public comments, you know, that's going to take a while. You understand? Now, it's fine when you're sitting in a chair when you're at county council, but sitting before a computer for 5 and 6 hours is ridiculous. You know, what we need, break it up after the meeting on Tuesday, go into executive, make the motion, go to executive session on Wednesday. And then if you want to go to the district office and look at these instruments, go down there this weekend, go down there Friday or Monday. That should be enough time to read all these articles. That's just my concern. You know.
Yeah.
I think we should have it 2 days.
Ms. Orshak?
We're just going to have to bite the bullet on this one. We're backed up. We could have had a meeting prior to this one, but we were, you know, in all fairness, we've been ironing out the technical piece of this. We're just going to really, I think, have to get through this one. There may be a few agenda items that can move to another special called meeting as I see it. For example, I do have one question about the approval of the 2021 school calendar. Weeks ago, I supported having this on the agenda, but I'm not certain if we'll be able to discuss it at length given the uncertainties. And I guess Dr. Rodriguez might need to speak to that. Is that better postponed, or are we required to look at this now somehow? Does that need to be on the April 7th agenda, the 2021 school calendar piece under board business action?
You know, I believe that it does, but I'd have to go back and check, Ms. Orshak, and see if there's anything that's requiring it by a certain date. And if not, we could move it.
So, my preference is like Earl's. I think it's asking too much of people to, even if you have a break between the executive session and the regular board meeting, you know, it's different than us meeting in person and doing it on the computer, and we're new at doing it on the computer. And I don't see the difference between having a special called meeting versus just make it a 2-day session where we just recess between Tuesday and Wednesday.
Tricia has her hand up.
Thank you. Tricia. She's muted.
She's muted.
She's muted. Unmute yourself. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, it's very difficult because you can't unmute yourself. I don't know if there's something in the system that could change that. But Joanne, to your point, as far as the calendar, I thought we had to review that because we cannot submit a waiver for the start date until we have a calendar approved. So I think it might be a time-sensitive issue.
Got it. Thanks.
Well, we have to make a decision.
Yep.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table, right?
Yeah, did you withdraw it or no?
Well, I said yeah, I'm just talking myself in circles here.
Yeah.
Because I see both sides. That's
Yes.
that's the problem. I see both sides. But shoot, my original feeling was that it would be better to break it into 2. So I'm gonna keep it. And,
okay, all right, and I seconded that.
Okay.
Okay, so we've had a lot of discussion. We're ready to take a vote?
Yeah.
Okay. So all those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Noes?
Aye.
Okay. Abstention?
Yeah.
So motion carries
You know
2-1.
what? Actually, you know what? If this is what y'all think that's gonna.
Again, you know, we'll try it and then we can always change it from, I don't know.
That's fine. Okay. That's
Okay.
fine.
So you're in approval of that too?
Yeah. We don't have to be divided on that. We could. I go with the strong try. I don't mind trying it.
Okay.
Okay.
All
All
right.
right.
So, Dr. Rodriguez and Wendy, obviously the agenda needs to be revised reflecting that decision.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And to be clear, the way I understood it was that the items on that top box that needed executive session would be moved to a different day. The items on the bottom that don't have to go in executive session would stay on the first day. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
And we also, another point of it is that, so that now that top box under board business action is going to go it would have to be down towards the very end of the first day of the meeting. And the vote is going to take place to go into executive session on day 2 at 6 p.m. or whatever. Yeah, 6 p.m. is probably the best because that is what time this one is too.
Can I ask a question for clarity?
Yes.
So the 2 other business items that we're adding, the emergency resolution, that would be added to the second box. So that's not an executive session item.
Correct.
And the radio and the equipment would become an executive session item, correct?
Radio and radio equipment is correct.
Okay. So, gotcha.
So I have a question about one of the items in the next box. I know that we've got to approve our state strategic plan. I think that's timely. The school calendar, I believe what Tricia said was correct, that we do need to move forward with that. And that's the one thing that people have been asking me, like they just want to know. And I'm like, well, you know, we can put it out there, but we're trying for something different. So the only other thing that I'm thinking that possibly could be moved is the discussion of high school graduation ceremonies. And my reason for that is I think to have that discussion, we're going to have input from the all of the high school principals. And I think to ask them to prepare something for us about that now might be a burden on, you know, everything else they're trying to do.
Well, I don't think so, because of the fact that, really technically speaking, it's not the high school's principals inputs that we're dealing with initially. We're talking about the board business, us as the school board members being the being the people who are being held responsible by the state for this district. So to be honest with you, it's really it's our jobs to come up with policies and procedures, and it's their job as high school principals to follow those procedures. So I don't think that, you know, at this point, I think as we get deep into it, then we can ask for their opinions. But at this point in time, I think it's about procedures and policies right now. I don't think it's necessarily about principals' input. So I'm gonna disagree with you on that.
So my comments, I would also think that I think it's not a timely matter now, because first of all, the State Department of Education may say there's no more school for this year. We don't know that yet, but they've said that through the end of April already. They may say through the end of May, in which case the graduation ceremony may be very different than what we have traditionally had years past. So I think it's in a way premature for this year to decide how that's going to be handled. That would be my comment.
I think Mr. Campbell's.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Let me say this about graduation. That is the principal and assistants and the school responsibility. That's not the board responsibility. Now, if they're doing something wrong, then we should bring it to their attention. But I do not believe that we should tell the principal or his staff.
Madam Chair, I think that is us having a meeting and discussing the topic. I think that's out of order, because we're not discussing the topic right now.
It's not.
So I think, I don't think this is the time to discuss that, unfortunately.
Well, I think to speak, my understanding what Mr. Campbell was saying, he was, I understood him to be saying that we don't need it at all on the agenda, correct, Earl?
No, we don't.
Okay.
Because, you know, if some of us has an issue with a certain school or a principal, then we need to get over it. You know,
Once again, point of order,
Yeah.
that's your opinion.
I'm speaking.
And that
Mr.
has
Smith,
that
Mr.
has no
Campbell
merit.
has the floor.
That has no merit. But go ahead.
Mr. Smith, you're not to speak
These
while Mr.
principals-
Campbell's speaking. Go ahead.
These people are having graduation for life ever since they've been a principal, and they know what they're doing. And I do not believe that we should get involved in this at all. You know, if you got a problem with a certain principal or a certain school, talk to the superintendent about it.
Ms. Fidrich?
I was just going to say, it's already a very lengthy agenda. We don't know what graduation is going to look like. Like you already mentioned, Tina, could be that we're still socially distancing during graduation. So I say that we put this item off till we get further guidance from the state, you know, for another meeting.
All right. Joanne?
I support what Tricia said. I think this is one of those items that can wait for a little more information, but I do want to remind Mr. Campbell that the board has historically tackled graduation ceremonies, their dates, their locations, and but I'm sure you already knew that, Mr. Campbell.
Yeah, listen, I'm not saying that what I am saying is that let the principal do their job. That's all I'm saying.
Well, we respectfully, once again, it is our jobs to make sure that graduation ceremonies should be going, and they're going according to what the board and what the state intends for them to go. So whether you like it or not, we still have an obligation to every single graduation that takes place in this district. Professionally, I have no problem with any principal in this district, as you have insinuated. But for as far as I'm concerned, is that as a board member, it don't matter which school it is, whether it's Hilton Head High School, whether it's Bluffton High School, or Battle Creek High School, or Beaufort High School. And I have the right, because I was elected by the people, when it comes to graduation, if there's something that I see is out of order, or something that I see that needs to be possibly looked at, it is my job as a board member to bring it up with us to discuss the policies that in the policies and the procedures of what's taking place. And I don't mind putting this off, but just to say, I was responding to originally what Kathy said, that the principal should have we need to ask the principals to speak on this. This is something that I brought up, and I know whether principals need to speak about what I wanted to talk around in my talking points. You never knew any of those. So once again, I think that was out of order to insinuate that I had a problem that I need to get over it.
Okay.
So it sounds like we're in agreement to move this to a later time.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So Robin, did you get that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now we're down to consent agenda, future agenda topics. Now this announcement, I did ask Robin to reach out to the county council and see where we stand with a remote video conferencing the two boards. And did you hear back?
I have not heard back from them yet.
Okay, so that's, at this point, we don't know how that's gonna play out. So Robin, also adjournment won't be, remember, on, you'll have it 2 days.
It'd be recess. It'd be recess.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Now we're gonna go back up to the other item we postponed, the TSI and priority schools. Let's take a vote, the officers, to have it on this agenda or not.
I think we should go ahead and have them on this agenda.
Okay, so you want to make a motion?
So actually, hold on, excuse me, wait a minute. Because if we took the priority schools off, if we took the priority, I mean, if we, well, I guess that would, Kathy, would that still be a lengthy meeting?
Well, I think that if you look at the clock report, the efficiency study, those could
take a while.
Those could take a while.
Wow.
Is
You're
what
right.
I was thinking. You know, that they
Yeah.
and they could lead to. I'm sure there'll be questions that board
Right.
members will have questions. So that was my reasoning. You know, that could take those three things could take easily an hour. And
Okay,
then,
so if we made the if we, one of us made the motion to possibly do the priority schools the same night as the executive set, or could we do it on a special call board meeting? Because
For the priority school presentation,
yeah.
I guess we can take a vote about that. I would not be supporting that. It's something that the state has already just told us it's, you know, our responsibility with this, William, the document I signed says that we are responsible, the board is, for certain things, one of which is to have a community committee be meeting to help support these schools. That can't even occur right now. So I think my preference is this meeting is extremely lengthy, and just to have the priority TSI school presentation in May or the later meeting in April.
and you know what, I would support that as long as if we got to the April meeting, the second meeting in April, and it was so full and we said, oh, we're going to have to move it again, then I think I would be inclined at that time, William, to say, let's have a special called meeting for that. So we don't keep pushing it off, because, you know, that work has been done. Those reports are there. So that would be my inclination. What do you think about that, William?
I can possibly go with that, but I don't. My problem is I just don't want to continue backlogging things. I don't want to get too far behind on these things, and these are still priorities, and I still like to know what was done, because it is our job as the board to still hold them accountable for what they have done, and we can report on what they've done. I want to hear it publicly. So
Yeah.
So I can support that.
Okay. We have, you know, in board docs are the reports from both of those schools.
Right.
So we can.
But the public, but it's better for us for them to. I was told it's better for us to hear out of their mouths exactly what was done. In the old school where I'm from, it said it's better to get from the horse's mouth. The reports is one thing, but I like to hear them and to just let them see the public, educating them on what they've done versus just saying out a document.
Okay, well, then this, as it appears here, though, this is Dr. Stratus will be presenting this and not the principals themselves. So if you really want to hear from the principals themselves, then perhaps it would need to be pushed back even later.
Well, no, if Dr. Stratus is bringing it, then she's bringing it on her, that is bringing forth on her merit. Then that's something that she's signing off on it publicly.
Okay.
All right.
Joanne's raising her hand.
Yes, exactly. Ms. Orshak?
I can ask my question when you're done with the vote. I'll wait. I just wanted to get in the queue. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think so. We're all in agreement. It
Yeah.
sounded like Will agreed to not having it on this meeting, correct?
Yeah, I am agreeing with not having on this meeting.
All
Okay.
right. So Robin, that comes off.
Gotcha.
Okay, Ms. Orshak?
You can finish with your vote. My question can wait till you're done.
We were in agreement. We didn't take a vote. We all agreed.
Well, actually, Ms. Rorschach, you want to, I mean, Ms. Kathy, you want to go ahead and make the motion so we can go ahead and, you go ahead and make the motion?
I don't think it requires a motion, but
It doesn't.
no.
It doesn't.
Does it?
No.
It's not officially, I don't think it's officially on the agenda until.
Right.
Right.
So,
This is a planning session, really.
Yeah.
We all
Yeah.
said we're fine with it.
Okay.
Okay. Ms. Orshak?
So just a process question for April 7th, our board meeting when we go live. For board members to effectively submit motions, I personally plan on using chat for that so that the writing of the motion can be clear for the full board and for the host, and that it can be posted. In the past, we've sometimes handed off motions to Robin prior to the meeting via email, or they're written by staff and they're actually placed in board docs for the secretary or whomever to recite. So the only thing I'll be using chat for during the meeting is to put forth any potential motions, because I can't see of any other vehicle to queue motions that might be put forth. You see what I'm saying? It would be a first come, first serve sort of a deal using chat. So I just wanted to put that out there for everyone. And I'm not sure if you've considered the chat vehicle as a means of submitting motions. And then obviously the motion would be made for the public as written. Robin would have the wording to put up on the screen. It would need to be seconded and discussed in the public forum. So I just wanted to mention that. I don't know if there was any discussion of using that.
Can I ask a question? Joanne, are you saying instead of verbally making a motion, you would put it in chat so that I would have the wording? Would you do both?
Oh, yeah, you would have to do both.
Oh, okay. I was trying to understand. I was trying to understand.
Yes, so it would be a means of putting forward the wording for you, Robin, so that you would have that in front of you to assist you. You're going to be juggling a lot, I would imagine. And obviously the motion would need to be made publicly by the motion maker and properly seconded and discussed. But I just wanted to clarify that I would be using chat for that as a vehicle for that only during a meeting. Okay.
Okay.
So have we had it clarified that this came up previously, whether the county channel will be, what I want to say, have chat visible to the public or not?
We discussed that we should not have chat visible to the public. So I've asked Scott not to have chat turned on, since this is, because anything that you write in chat will be on TV. So for example, if we need to say, Molly, unmute Dr. Rodriguez, that would be visible to the public. So.
Okay, I misunderstood you. I thought you said chat. So you said chat. I thought you just said that Scott would not have chat turned on.
Exactly. That's correct. So that's why we would not have chat on, so that it would be, we don't want it to be visible to the public.
Right, so then you have to be very careful what's put in there. I mean, I don't think it's unacceptable to put, please unmute me or something like that, but obviously you can't have a separate board meeting via chat with members. No. Yeah.
That's
so could Wendy weigh in on this?
Wendy is not here now. She had to go to a conference call with the superintendent.
Okay. Ms. Orshak?
I want to clarify, I'm not proposing a private board meeting using chat. I was proposing the use of chat to assist Robin with the exact wording of motions that are put forward, similar to what we're already doing Some board members will submit a motion to Robin prior to a meeting, so she has it for ease of use to display for our electronic voting. Oftentimes, district staff, senior staff will have motions prepared for the board and the specific wording for ease of use, so Robin can place them. We're doing our voting electronically. This would simply be used solely for that purpose. But Robin, if you're saying we're not going to have access to chat, then we'll just do the best we can there. No problem. I just like you.
No, I'm not saying you wouldn't have it. I'm saying the public would not have it.
Oh, okay, good. That clarifies. I appreciate it. Okay.
That's fine.
All right, do we have any further business?
Do we need to set a date for our next agenda setting meeting?
Yep.
That's generally
8 days ahead of,
Yeah.
So let's see on the calendar.
Yeah, where'd I put my?
Well, the next meeting would be the 21st?
Correct.
So it would be
The 13th or
the 13th.
Okay, Monday the 13th.
Yeah. And what time?
I'm completely flexible. So you and William can.
Do you have a preference, William?
But you tell me, not really. I can be on what day? What did you say?
Monday, April 13th.
I possibly can be flexible that day as well.
So Dr. Rodriguez, what would work well for the staff and you? And
Anytime. I usually have senior staff meetings on Monday mornings. So,
you want to say 3
but if I need to
o'clock?
move that, I'll move it. Whatever works for you all, we'll do that first.
How about 3 o'clock? Is that
That
good?
works for me.
Yep.
Okay.
What time are we starting the second meeting for the executive session on Wednesday?
My recommendation would be 6 o'clock, just so there's no confusion, but I'm open to other, just to make it the same as the night before.
Do we want county to be available at a week to stream it after you come out of executive session?
Yes.
So giving
So is
them
that a
time
problem?
frame?
Oh,
No, I just need to kind of give them a time frame.
How about if we started, Joanne did send a message to us via chat. I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah,
About,
I'll be unavailable in the evening. It's my youngest son's birthday, and we have a special event at home, just family planned. I didn't factor on the 8th as anything being scheduled because it doesn't align with our approved calendar. I apologize.
would 5 o'clock help at all, Joanne?
No, but please don't base it
Oh,
around me.
okay.
You just need a quorum, and however the officers feel is appropriate to proceed is fine.
Okay, I just was, once I saw that, I thought perhaps if we made it an hour earlier, maybe your dinner started at 7 or something. So, okay. All right, then I guess 6 would probably be best.
any other questions, Robin?
Should I go ahead and schedule board members to come in and view executive session items?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is Molly.
And do we
Can I
need,
speak?
go ahead.
Trisha had asked a question. Is there any way that the individual can have control over his or her mute button? It is only like that for, I guess, committee meetings, since we have the public joining in, since it's not live streamed. So I will be controlling your mute button, and I guess.
Well, actually, Technically speaking, I'm pretty good with Zoom. Actually, technically speaking, no one has to have control of the over the mute button. Board members, if you have stuff going on in the background, you can actually mute and unmute yourself. You can mute yourself and unmute yourself on your own as board members. So I don't see a problem with that versus everyone else in the room. I think that my personal preference, I think that board members should be unmute at all times. They should be able to mute and unmute themselves at all times, because we are elected officials here on this call, and not students or children. So, I mean, that's just something that I was gonna put out there anyway. Coming to the end of the meeting, is that board members should not be muted on this call under no circumstances. We should be able to mute and unmute ourselves at all times, because it does allow that capability.
Yes.
It doesn't when we on the committee meetings and the agenda meeting, the host has to mute all or none. And because we have, this meeting is open to live public, we had to mute all so that any public member can't just jump in and speak. So when we have our streaming board meeting on Tuesday, that is coming through the county. So board members will be able to control themselves individually, because the public will be viewing this through the county channel.
Correct.
Okay.
That's what I was going to say.
Well, if that's the case, then maybe we should do them all the same way. My preference.
The county channel, we would have to work with the county if for any of our agenda settings and committee meetings. If we have the county channel stream it, then our meetings would be subject to their schedule and their availability.
All right, anything else?
I think Kathy's muted. She has to be unmute.
Okay. Kathy, do you have something to say? Oh, no, she can't.
Yes, you can.
She's still muted. There you go, you're free.
When you started talking about it, I thought, oh, I'm gonna just try it, and nope, can't unmute yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Just one question, if I may. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Just a process question. As we change and adjust our board-approved meeting calendar, Robin, for example, this week's meetings, we are turning what would have been a one-day meeting into a two-day meeting, since we're going to recess, okay? So what are our requirements in that? And going forward, as we will need to have special call meetings, what do we need to do are we just simply notifying the public, or is there some other measures we need to take when we're changing the existing board-approved meeting calendar?
It's the same requirements. We just have to make a 24-hour notification.
Okay, so if a one-day board meeting is later extended as a two-day board meeting, there are no special considerations as long as we just let the public know prior to that two-day meeting, 24 hours prior to the first day?
Correct.
Okay.
Because on the agenda, it would be a recess. So when this agenda is published for Tuesday's meeting, it will show that it will recess, like we do the work session. It will show that it's the 7th and 8th meeting.
Gotcha. Okay. And a special called meeting, are there certain guidelines that need to follow a special call meeting, or is it just at the officers and or the board's discretion?
Exactly.
Okay. Thanks, Robin. That's it for me. Thank you, everyone.
I do have something too, Mrs. Orshak. I want to ask you, since that you have a prior obligation, if you have any questions going into executive sessions, if we gave you the first shot at asking any questions you may have at first, would that help you? Could you possibly, would that help you to possibly ask any questions or concerns that you may have? If we allowed you to ask any questions that you have had coming, would that help you on Wednesday?
Well, it doesn't appear, given the timing of the meeting, that I would be able to participate. I may have questions after reviewing the documents, but they can happen at any time, frankly, since I wouldn't be there to lend my vote. Okay, make sense?
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I can ask those questions at any time to Dr. Rodriguez or whomever. But thank you, William.
No problem.
Okay.
All right. Motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Yay.
Aye.
Aye.
Mhm.
Thank you, everyone.
Yep, thanks.